Hi there. So you want to work with the children here at the East Independence Church of Christ. Well, that's great, and we're all very excited to hear about that. However, before you begin ministering to our youth here, we'd like to talk about the most important parts of children's ministries. Number one, keeping the kids and the volunteers safe. And secondly, the activities beneficial and enjoyable for all parties involved. This video is an overview of the East Independence Church of Christ Child Protection Policy. We want to encourage you to review the full document as well as watch this video before signing the acknowledgement form. Our Child Protection Policy has been enacted to ensure the well-being of all of our children as well as those who work with them. The policy has not been enacted because of any problem within our church or to punish anyone. The church enacted this policy because we're dedicated to the ministry of our children as well as the safety of all parties involved. Tragically, according to the American Academy of Pediatrics, approximately 3 million cases of child abuse and neglect involving 5.5 million children are reported each year in the United States. It's also believed that only 30% of cases are actually reported. Sadly, churches and religious organizations are not excluded from these occurrences, and we shouldn't pretend that it's impossible for something like this to happen at our church. God has called us to love everyone, including our children. Jesus made a high priority of including children in his earthly ministry, and we should do the same as well. As God-honoring Christians, we need to make sure that the safety of our children and ministry workers is our top priority. And remember, a child is defined as anyone under the age of 18. In this video, we'll be talking about our recruitment process for ministry volunteers, how to best keep our kids and volunteers safe, and what to do in the event that a child is in an unsafe situation. Let's start with recruitment. To be both a regular and a one-time volunteer with our children's ministries, you must be at least 18 years of age. And in addition, you must have been an active and participating member at East Independence for at least 6 months. This gives us time to get to know each other before putting our children under your care. We also ask that you complete an information sheet giving us permission to check your references and background information. This includes both your driving record and a criminal background check. This way we can search each candidate for any safety concerns, including abuse of children, and deter anyone who might volunteer with the intent of harming any of our children. No adult volunteer or worker should be romantically or sexually involved with a child, and finally, anyone with a history of sexual misconduct with children may not be a volunteer or a worker. All volunteers and workers must acknowledge in writing that they understand and agree to abide by the terms of the Child Protection Policy. The agreement must be renewed every year. Next up, we're going to talk about something that involves both newer and existing volunteers alike, keeping all parties as safe as possible. This starts with accountability, driving safety, and keeping our actions public. When supervising children, there must be at least 2 volunteers or church staff in attendance at all times, regardless of the number of children, the location, or the activity. In a Bible class, if there's only 1 adult in attendance in the classroom, please make sure to keep the door to the classroom open at all times. To reduce the risk of kidnapping, children under the age of 5 should only be released from a class, event, or activity to an adult member of their family or another adult designated by their legal guardian. When scheduling a church activity, make sure it's located in areas that are visible to adjoining areas. At no time should you ever meet with a child alone in a room where the door is closed or where you cannot be seen. This greatly helps prevent any abuse, as well as decreasing the likelihood of any abuse being alleged or needing to be reported. When driving children to events, make sure that there's at least 1 other church-assigned volunteer or sponsor with you in the car if the trip involves more than 6 children. In order to drive children to events, you must be over the age of 21 and be licensed to drive the vehicle of choice. You also must have presented a copy of your driver's license and insurance card to the church secretary to keep on file before driving. While driving, make sure that you're not texting at any point and do not consume any alcohol during or within 24 hours before beginning the trip. Also, make sure that your vehicle is safe by making sure that your vehicle is in good working order, that you follow the rules of the road, and in having car insurance. This is a great place to start. When taking care of children, try your best to keep a solid chaperone-to-child ratio to keep things in order. When taking care of infants, there should be at least one adult for every 4 infants. With toddlers, there should be at least one for every 6. With 2-year-olds, one for every 8. With 3-year-olds, one for every 9. And with children 4 and older, we ask that there be one adult for every 10 children involved. We realize that maintaining this ratio isn't always possible, but we ask that you keep this ratio as best you can. Physical forms of affection are important for the emotional development and well-being of children. However, touching must always be done appropriately and done in the presence of another volunteer worker. Physical affection also should be age-appropriate. It's usually acceptable for a 4-year-old to sit in the lap of a volunteer, not so much for a teenager. The final thing that we're going to discuss is reporting abuse or an incident, and this is crucial. As a general rule, most volunteers are not qualified to handle situations of abuse, but we are all required to report them to those who are. First of all, if a child is willing to open up to you about abuse or neglect, make sure that you listen to them and take them seriously. While the child speaks to you, reassure them and do not promise them that you'll keep this a secret. It's our job to report these instances. Now, if you have a reasonable cause to believe that a child has been abused or neglected, simply call 911 or the Social Service Child Abuse Hotline at 800-392-3738 as soon as possible. If you're faced with a situation in which a child is or could be being abused, before anything else, make sure the child is safe. This is your number one priority. And do not confront the accused abuser until you've assured the child is safe. Once the child is safe, contact the proper authorities, including the elders, as soon as possible. Make sure that you treat each allegation with confidentiality and respect for all parties involved. If we start telling others, it will quickly become hurtful gossip, and that's not good for anybody. Finally, make sure that you fully cooperate with all authorities involved. To review, the primary features of our child protection policy are as follows. Use only volunteers who've been screened with application and background checks. Use volunteers who've been at our church 6 months or more. Our goal is to have at least 2 adults with our children during classes and activities. Provide visibility into our classrooms and to provide training and information to our volunteers about ensuring the well-being of our children. We hope that this was helpful, and we are so thankful for your desire to help in our children's ministry. It is vital to the growth and development of our children for them to interact in safe, appropriate, and God-honoring ways with a variety of Christian adults. We're always looking for ways to promote these interactions, and the safety of our children is our highest priority.